The orders came wrapped in pomp and ceremony, though the message itself was simple. Investigate the primitive bipeds of Sol 3. My superiors framed it as an honor, but I recognized the truth. They wanted someone articulate enough to craft a damning report, and no one in the fleet can lace contempt with elegance quite like I can. I welcome the task. What could be more amusing than studying a species still fumbling with combustion engines, emojis, and cheap entertainment broadcasts? My first observations confirmed my prejudice. Humanity is hopelessly addicted to absurdities. They watch endless competitions where individuals shriek about furniture, cook meals of grotesque improvisation, or attempt to find mates by embarrassing themselves in front of millions. They call this reality television, though it resembles neither reality nor entertainment. Their diet is equally risible. Pressed animal flesh placed between bread, anointed with yellow paste, elevated to near sacramental status. More disturbing is their so-called microwave burrito, a cylindrical package that hums inside a box until it emerges molten at the edges yet frozen at the center. They eat anyway, smiling. My crew refused to believe such barbarism existed until I provided intercepted footage. Equally baffling is their communication system. They replace words with small yellow faces, as if nuanced thought could be reduced to crude caricatures. I log an observation that entire human negotiations occur with pictures of smiling fruit or exaggerated winks. When challenged on this absurdity, my assistant suggested the practice might be ritualistic. I disagreed. It is simply stupidity institutionalized. Still, procedure demanded we capture a specimen for study. There were billions available, yet I insisted on an unremarkable example, for one learns more from mediocrity than from extremes. We found him by a riverbank, surrounded by trees, alone beside a small campfire. His shelter was a flimsy fabric structure. He wore woven flannel and boots hardened by use. Nothing suggested significance, which made him perfect. I authorized the beam. He stiffened instantly, eyes half-lidded, body rigid. No struggle, no cry, no plea. My subordinates congratulated one another on the ease of acquisition. I joined their laughter, but noted something they missed, the faint curl of his lips. Even paralyzed, he smiled. We lifted him aboard. He lay on the containment platform, surrounded by pristine light, while the neurosuspension ensured stillness. I dictated my initial log with relish. The subject is male, middle years, ordinary musculature. Possesses crude tools, a blade of sharpened steel, a device producing controlled flame, packets of instant coffee. Carries with him a roll of adhesive cloth called duct tape. Humans apparently rely on this substance to repair vehicles, clothing, perhaps even relationships. It is bewildering that an entire civilization worships sticky fabric. The crew laughed loudly at this discovery. I laughed too, though again my gaze drifted toward his face. The smile lingered, faint yet deliberate. The science officer examined his body with clinical indifference. Denser musculature than baseline, he noted. Skeletal adaptation suggests habitual strain. I dismissed it. Gravity on their world demands constant exertion. Even the weakest must push themselves to remain upright. It is no sign of sophistication. The officer pressed no further, though I noticed his hesitation. My soldiers amused themselves by speculating about the man's life. Perhaps he wandered here to escape the noise of his chaotic cities, one said. Perhaps he is an outcast, said another. I ignored them. His background was irrelevant. He was data, nothing more. Still, I logged a private note. Subject displays unusual calmness. No observable fear response. Possible cognitive defect. It soothed me to assign his demeanor to deficiency. During equipment preparation, the youngest soldier asked whether additional restraints were necessary. I laughed in his face. Do you fear a squirrel will gnaw through steel? He is paralyzed. He is nothing. My arrogance pleased the others. Confidence is contagious. Yet in truth, I felt an irritation I could not name. As the chamber hummed with power, I recorded my final entry for the cycle. Within days, we shall know them completely. their thoughts, their fears, their limits. We will chart their capacities and erase their presence from the galactic ledger. The universe will forget them before it ever truly noticed them. The words rang with grandeur, exactly the tone my superiors demanded. And yet, when I turned to leave, my gaze betrayed me. His eyes opened, clear, steady, unafraid. The paralysis should have sealed them shut, but they glinted in the sterile light. That smile, subtle yet mocking, spread across his face again. He was looking at me, not through me, as if our roles had inverted, as if I were the one on display. My throat tightened, though I forced myself to stand still. None of my crew noticed. They busied themselves with instruments. I said nothing. I cannot admit to seeing it, for acknowledgement would lend it power. I stepped out, ordered the chamber sealed, and entered a final note only for myself. Subject smiles despite immobilization. Interpretation uncertain. I told myself it was a meaningless spasm, a trick of muscle. I told myself the paralysis was absolute, that our science could not fail. I told myself many things as I walked the corridor back to command. Yet beneath every justification pulsed an unfamiliar sensation, quiet but insistent. Doubt. That smile haunted me long after I left the chamber. It was not the smile of ignorance. It was not the smile of someone who failed to comprehend his predicament. It was measured, calculated, deliberate. The kind of smile one gives when a plan is already in motion. The paralysis was designed to last hours, sometimes days if required. Yet after mere cycles, his eyelids lifted with unnatural ease. He did not gasp or thrash as others had during premature awakenings. Instead, he blinked once, as though reacquainting himself with his surroundings, and then fixed his gaze directly upon me. That smile returned, the one I had tried to dismiss as reflex. It curved across his face with deliberate poise, as if he were greeting an old acquaintance rather than an abducting commander. My subordinates whispered in confusion. Impossible, one muttered. Another checked the readings. The neural dampeners showed perfect function. According to the monitors, he should have been locked in stasis, unable even to flicker a thought. Yet there he was, awake, calm, and unbearably composed. I straightened, unwilling to reveal the discomfort curling through my chest. "Speak, human," I commanded, more to assert dominance than from expectation. To my dismay, he obeyed. "Evening," he said softly, as though we sat beside his riverside fire. His voice carried no tremor, only casual warmth. He glanced around, surveying the chamber, then returned his eyes to me. "Let me guess. You're the commander. Science officer there. Security by the door. You." He nodded toward the youngest, still in training. He spoke with the confidence of one reading from a script already written. My soldiers stiffened, their eyes darting to me for explanation. I offered none. "How did you know our roles?" I demanded, forcing steadiness into my tone. "Easy enough," he replied, shrugging against restraints that should have frozen every muscle. "The way you stand, the way you breathe. Authority, curiosity, vigilance, insecurity. Same as home." He grinned again, that infuriatingly controlled expression. "People aren't as different as you think." I searched for words, for some clinical dismissal, yet found only silence. My science officer filled the void. "The paralysis should prevent speech," he stammered. The human turned toward him, eyes sharp with amusement. "I figure out how to slip past it. You'd be surprised what steady breathing and focus can do." His tone carried the lightness of conversation, yet beneath it lay something more, an implication that he had not merely endured our technology, but studied it, mastered it. I tried to reassert control. "You are in no position to." "Position," he interrupted smoothly. "Funny word. I've been in plenty. Recon in deserts, deployments in forests, nights in alleys no one admits exist. You've got good tech, I'll give you that, but it's noisy." I could feel the dampeners humming halfway up. His calm description unsettled me more than any scream could have. Panic is predictable. Calmness is not. My crew exchanged uneasy glances. One soldier whispered, "He was awake during transport." "Yes," the human confirmed cheerfully, as though joining their conversation. Awake the whole way. Counted every vibration. Smelled the recycled air. Watched reflections in your panels when you thought I was unconscious. He leaned his head slightly, eyes narrowing in playfulness that somehow felt predatory. Nice ship, by the way. A little drafty near the aft conduits, but comfortable enough. I scoffed, though it rang hollow. Bluff. Primitive intuition dressed as insight. He leaned forward, or rather, the illusion of leaning forward, for his body should have remained rigid, yet somehow the angle of his shoulders shifted as though rules bent subtly in his presence. Call a bluff if that makes you feel better, he said. But you already know it's not. My mouth formed a retort, but the words withered before leaving. A sensation gnawed at me, the undeniable possibility that he was telling the truth. The science officer initiated secondary scans, desperate to reclaim authority. Beams of light washed over the subject, measuring synaptic currents, cataloging neuron firings. The readouts blurred with anomalies. Impossible, the officer muttered again, his voice climbing toward panic. He anticipates the pulses. His neural patterns shift before we apply stimuli. The human chuckled. You try to read me like a book, but you forgot I know how to hold the pen. A silence spread, thick and cloying. Even the ship's engines seemed to hush, as though waiting for my response. I opened my mandibles to speak, but he beat me to it. You're not the first to test me, he said, softer now, almost intimate. I used to let people run experiments, measure reflexes, poke around with electrodes. They always came back with the same line, anomalous but manageable. They were wrong. I'm not manageable. His gaze bored into me, and neither are my people. I felt a ripple of unease run through the chamber. Soldiers shifted weight, fingers brushing nervously against weapon grips, though none dared draw them. For the first time since we descended on this backwater world, I sensed something unfamiliar. We were not hunters studying prey. We were creatures poking a beast that allowed itself to be touched. I summoned every fragment of training, every ritual of composure. You exaggerate your importance. You are one man, isolated, defenseless. We possess knowledge of 1,000 worlds. What could you possibly hope to? He cut across me with a whisper that silenced the chamber. I've already sent a message. The words fell like stones into still water, rippling outward in every mind present. My soldiers stiffened. The science officer turned pale beneath his carapace. Impossible, he repeated for the third time, but his denial carried no conviction. The human smiled wider, teeth gleaming. You think I came camping unprepared? Thought I didn't notice the way the stars flickered wrong above the treeline? Thought I didn't recognize the hum of your cloak generator? You underestimate us. Everyone does. That's the trick. I wanted to dismiss him, to laugh, to reclaim arrogance. Yet his tone, his posture, his unshakable calmness stripped my words of power. For a moment, I saw not a primitive mammal, but something else, something crafted by hardship and honed by secrets I had not yet glimpsed. Still, pride compelled me to answer. You speak as though humanity is a threat. Yet your weapons are crude, your machines loud and inefficient. What defense could your species offer against the might of the galactic armadas? He tilted his head, amusement flickering like shadow. You'll find out. And when you do, remember this conversation. He leaned back, or appeared to, though restraints bound him still, and exhaled as though supremely comfortable. You thought I was asleep. I was studying. You thought I was powerless. I was preparing. You thought Earth was primitive. We like it that way. The chamber grew cold, though no temperature control shifted. His words filled the space like an unseen force, pressing against our confidence until cracks formed. I tried to compose my report in my mind, to shape this encounter into a tale of primitive bluffing, yet my thoughts stumbled over his calm certainty. At last, I forced the moment closed. Continue the tests. I ordered, my voice sharp though thinner than I intended. He seeks to intimidate. We will strip him bare until nothing remains. My crew obeyed, though hesitantly. Their eyes betrayed doubt. Mine, though hidden, betrayed something worse, the first flicker of fear. And as the chamber door sealed once more, His voice followed after us like smoke. "Check your power systems," he murmured. I told myself it was nothing, a final attempt at provocation. Yet deep inside, I knew he had planted a seed that would soon sprout into something uncontrollable. We resumed testing with an eagerness born of irritation. His composure grated on us, and I ordered the procedures escalated. The science officer adjusted the scanners, weaving pulses across the human's cortex, determined to chart every fold of his brain. Light cascaded across his skull, readings streaming into our consoles. Yet rather than confusion or fear, the subject smiled again, lips twitching with private amusement. He whispered something faintly, forcing us to increase the sensors to capture his words. "Red pill, blue pill, what'll it be today?" The officer frowned. I demanded clarity. The human only chuckled. "Never mind. Wrong audience." The data on our displays soon broke into anomalies. His neural responses did not follow our predictions. Instead of reacting to stimuli, he anticipated them, shifting patterns before the pulses struck. My science officer sputtered explanations, but none satisfied. He bent around the input, one muttered, another whispered. It is as if he knows the questions before we ask. The human lifted his head slightly, though it should have been impossible. "You're aiming for brain maps," he said evenly, "but you're building a mirror. You're not reading me. I'm reading you." The chamber chilled with silence. My soldiers gripped their weapons unconsciously. His gaze roamed the ceiling, settling precisely on the concealed camera ports. He raised his eyebrows knowingly. 3 of them, one malfunctioning. He looked back at me. "You might want to fix that." I forced a sneer, though it tasted of fear. "Coincidence. A lucky guess." "Sure," he replied, his voice thick with sarcasm. "And Florida Man is a statistical anomaly." The reference meant nothing to us, yet his tone alone carried menace. He smiled wider, relishing our confusion. Our officer insisted on repeating the scans, desperate for order. The beams fired again. This time, the human spoke while the patterns danced. "Upper frequencies leaking into your secondary relays. That's why your systems hum. I used the vibration to map your deck layout." He recited corridors, chambers, and bulkheads with uncanny precision. The youngest soldier gasped. How could he know? "Because I listened," the human answered simply. His voice was calm, almost kind, yet to us it sounded like a blade sliding free from its sheath. I leaned forward, determined to pierce his confidence. "Enough games. Who are you?" His eyes locked onto mine. "Once upon a time, I wore a uniform. Traveled deserts, jungles, mountains. You call it combat, but we called it work. Then I shifted roles. Studied patterns, vulnerabilities, systems. They gave it names, counterintelligence, security testing. Truth is, I learned how to break things, and how to stop others from breaking us." He shrugged. "Now, I camp, fish, pretend at normal life. But you picked the wrong fire to snuff." I felt a tremor ripple through my carapace. His words were not loud, not theatrical. They were matter of fact, delivered with the ease of someone stating the weather. That calmness terrified me more than any roar. My crew pressed closer to their consoles, desperate to salvage authority. The science officer announced, "His brainwave density exceeds our highest scale. He is anomalous." The human laughed softly. "I told you. They always say that. And then they call me manageable. But you already know better, don't you?" His gaze pierced me, reading my unspoken doubts. I forced defiance. "You are contained. Whatever talents you boast, you remain at our mercy." His reply was almost a whisper, yet every syllable carried weight. "I've already sent a message." We froze. Even I, practiced in the art of control, faltered. I demanded explanation, but he offered only silence. The words lingered like poison in the air, corroding confidence with each second. Finally, I barked at my officer, "Trace any outgoing transmissions." He obeyed, hands frantic across the console. Minutes dragged. The readings were inconclusive, distorted by interference we could not explain. The human watched our panic with detached amusement. "You still don't get it. You think strength is measured in size of fleet or firepower. You think hiding behind advanced alloys makes you safe. But humans don't fight fair. We adapt. We improvise. We smile while the ground shifts under you. My youngest soldier whispered, "What if he's telling the truth?" His words cracked the chamber like glass. Authority fractured. I struck the floor with my claw to silence him. Yet the question echoed regardless. The human leaned back against restraints that no longer seemed sufficient. You wanted secrets? Here's one. Earth isn't weak. We play weak because predators ignore prey that looks harmless. But when they bite, he grinned again, teeth gleaming. They learn the prey has claws. I struggled to compose myself. This was psychological manipulation, nothing more. Yet his certainty eroded the foundation of my arrogance. I had called them primitives, laughed at their burritos, sneered at their duct tape. Now, I wondered whether those very absurdities concealed strategy. What if chaos itself was their weapon? The science officer whispered frantically, "His scans are destabilizing our instruments. Feedback loops are forming. He is altering the system by presence alone." "Not by presence," the human corrected gently. "By design. You opened the door when you scanned me. Gave me a pathway. You thought you were mapping my mind, but I was mapping yours." The consoles flickered, lights dimming then surging. My soldiers stepped back, weapons drawn though useless. I barked orders to shut the system down, but alarms blared in response. The ship groaned like a wounded beast. The human tilted his head, eyes glinting. "Check your power systems." The word struck harder the second time. He had warned us before, and we had ignored it. Now the ship trembled, circuits crackling, panels sparking. My arrogance cracked fully then. Fear, raw and unmasked, surged through me. Desperate, I turned to the human. "What have you done?" He looked at me with unsettling calm. "Nothing you didn't invite." The chamber's lights cut out, plunging us into darkness. Emergency red flares sputtered to life. I heard my crew's uneven breathing, the thrum of malfunctioning systems, and beneath it all the soft chuckle of the human, perfectly at ease. For the first time, I no longer believed I commanded. The chamber convulsed with alarm tones, crimson light strobing against metal walls that had never before trembled. My crew shouted, each voice layering panic upon panic, and still the human sat in his chair of restraints, as though this chaos were a campfire tale he had told 100 times. He tilted his head, listening to the shudder of our vessel with clinical interest, then murmured, "Systems don't like being mirrored. Fragile things when you push them." His tone was conversational, but each word struck like a hammer on glass. I barked commands, ordering containment fields raised, weapon systems primed, all auxiliary nodes rerouted. Yet my console stuttered, flickered, then dissolved into static. The science officer screamed that the ship's intelligence core was no longer responding, that commands rerouted themselves before reaching the circuits. My youngest soldier stared at the dark screens, muttering prayers in a voice that quivered. Their fear seeped into me, though I tried desperately to sheath it beneath authority. The human smiled. "I told you, I sent a message." He shifted his shoulders, restraints groaning as though they resisted more than muscle. "You used your scanning beam like a question. I gave you an answer. Now your own machine can't tell who's in charge." My throat rasped. "This is impossible. We have safeguards." He nodded slowly. "Sure, but you built them against yourselves, not against someone who thinks differently." His eyes gleamed in the red light. "Not against someone who finds the cracks because he's lived with cracks his whole life." Panels along the wall sparked, spraying fragments that hissed against the floor. My officers recoiled. I could no longer deny the truth. He had turned our own vessel against us. My arrogance, that shield of superiority I had carried like a crown, lay shattered. "Listen carefully," I growled, straining to steady my voice. "You are one man, alone, unarmed. You cannot possibly expect to conquer us." He chuckled, low and amused. "Conquer? No, that's your word, not ours. I don't need to conquer you. I just need you to understand." The ship lurched, artificial gravity stuttering. My soldiers stumbled, weapons clattering to the floor. In the sudden disarray, the human lifted his gaze and said almost kindly, "Earth isn't what you think. We've been watching, waiting. You see primitives burning gas and laughing at television. We'll let you see that, because predators underestimate prey that looks foolish. His smile thinned, sharp as a blade. But when we bite back, it hurts. The science officer trembled, voice barely audible. What is he? The human turned toward him. Prepared. A silence pressed down heavier than gravity. For the first time, I realized this was not merely a man. He was a message wrapped in flesh, a demonstration of principle. He embodied something larger than himself, an entire species hiding its teeth behind laughter. I forced a final defense. Even if what you claim is true, your weapons are crude compared to ours. Clubs and combustion engines against the armadas of the galaxy? Absurd. His smile widened, but his eyes darkened with certainty. You mean the Abrams? That's just our introduction. The name hung in the chamber, meaningless to my crew, yet dripping with menace. He leaned forward, restraints groaning again, and his voice dropped into a whisper that carried across the silence. We build things that look simple. No glowing crystals, no elegant alloys. Just iron and fire. But they work, and when they roll across a field, everything in front of them disappears. That's how we fight. Not pretty, not poetic, just final. My youngest soldier whimpered, clutching his rifle though he knew it would not fire. The ship groaned louder, lights flickering in surrender. I felt the walls themselves betray me, shifting allegiance from master to intruder. Desperate, I demanded, what do you want from us? The human regarded me with something that might have been pity. Not much, just for you to remember. You think we're beneath you. You laugh at our burritos, our duct tape, our cats chasing lasers. That's fine. Laugh. But don't mistake laughter for weakness. We hide our claws in jokes, our teeth in chaos. That's our way. He leaned back, closing his eyes as though the matter were settled. The alarms dulled, systems yielding to whatever symbiosis he had forced upon them. My crew stood paralyzed, not by beams or restraints, but by realization. We were no longer in control. I tried to compose words for my report, yet the phrases dissolved. How does one admit that the galaxy's armies tremble before a species they had mocked only cycles before? How does one confess that duct tape terrifies more than plasma rifles? That sarcasm cuts deeper than blades? The human opened his eyes once more. You're going to leave, he said simply. You'll tell your people what you saw, though you'll dress it up, twist it, pretend it was different. But deep down you'll know, and you'll stay away. Because next time, it won't just be me. His certainty hollowed me. The arrogance I once carried now felt like brittle bone, fragile and useless. My crew looked to me for guidance, but I had none. All I could do was stand in the crimson glow and acknowledge that the power dynamic had inverted completely. I whispered, more to myself than to him. We thought you were apes. He smiled faintly. And now, I swallowed the bitter taste of truth. Now we see iron beasts walk beside you. He closed his eyes again, breathing slow, as if the conversation had ended. Yet for me, it would never end. The lesson carved itself in my mind, indelible as fire on stone. When the systems finally stabilized, when the alarms hushed into silence, I ordered retreat. My voice quavered, but no one challenged it. We carried the human back to his world, laying him gently beside his extinguished fire, as though returning a deity to his altar. His eyes flickered open one last time. He did not attack, did not threaten. He only whispered, "Don't forget." Then he rolled onto his side, pulled his blanket closer, and pretended to sleep. We ascended into the sky, broken not by weapons, but by realization. I stared at the shrinking planet below, a sphere of blue and green wrapped in clouds, and felt dread coil where arrogance once lived. We had come expecting docility, weakness, amusement. Instead, we discovered a truth more dangerous than any fleet. A species that smiles when cornered, jokes when threatened, and builds iron beasts while the galaxy underestimates them. I began my final log, hands unsteady. We thought them primitive. We thought them clumsy apes playing with fire. But there's something else. They hide sharpness behind humor, resilience behind absurdity. Their weapons roar with iron voices, and their people frighten me. I ended the entry not with arrogance, but with fear. We are not their conquerors. We are their warning.